Okay, let's see if I can go over these questions at the end that you're supposed to practice. So momentum change of an object is equal to the... So remember that momentum change, delta P, all right, that may help give you some clues. The momentum change is equal to the force acting on it, the impulse acting on it, the velocity change of the object, or the object's mass times force acting on it. And the answer here is the impulse acting on it. Delta P is equal to I, or I equals delta P, whichever you prefer. Alright, question number 2 here. Airbags are used in cars because do they increase the force that you hit the dashboard? Do they increase the time of impact? Do they decrease the momentum? Do they decrease the impulse? And the answer is they increase the duration time. So impulse equals the change in momentum. So when you have an airbag, you have the same change in momentum whether you have an airbag or not, which means you have the same impulse whether you have an airbag or not. What changes is the change in momentum stays the same. What changes is the force and the time. If you have an airbag, you have a big amount of time and a small force. If you don't have an airbag, you have a big force and a little bit of time to get that change in momentum that is the same. Okay? Question number 3. One car crashes into a concrete barrier, another car crashes into a collapsible barrier at the same speed. What is the difference between the two crashes? Is it the change in momentum? Is it the force on the car? Is it the impact time? Or is it both B and C? And the answer is both B and C. So one car, assuming they're the same car, the same mass, right? The impulse and the change in momentum are the same again. And with the change in momentum being the same, the only difference is a big force over a little bit of time or a small force over a big amount of time for that change in momentum. This would be the barrier. Sorry, this would be the concrete barrier. No. Small force is the collapsible barrier, and big force is the concrete barrier. Don't hit the brick wall. All right. Question number 4. In order to increase the final momentum of a golf ball, we could basically just increase the force acting on it. Not changing the speed of the golf ball after the collision doesn't do anything to impact that, or increasing the time of contact between the club and the ball doesn't really cause the final momentum to be greater. All you can do is change the force. Alright. External force of 25 newtons acts on a system. So this is a force for 10 seconds. That's time. How big is the impulse delivered to the system? So we're looking for the impulse. We've got a force of 25 newtons. We've got a time of 10 seconds. Impulse equals force times change in time. I know the formula is impulse equals force times change in time, but often what happens is I'll leave off that delta t just because time is always it's scalar. It's always going to be positive, so the change in time is always positive. And we usually don't report time in as a change in time. We say how long it took. We already are reporting the change in time. So anyhow, impulse equals 25 newtons times 10 seconds, and that's going to give you 250 newton seconds is the impulse. In the previous problem, an external force of 25 newtons acted on a system for 10 seconds. We found that the impulse delivered was 250 newton seconds. What's the amount of the change of momentum of the system? What is the change of momentum of the system is what we're looking for. So delta P is what we're looking for. We've got an impulse of 250 newton seconds. We also have a time of 10 seconds and a force of 25 newtons. It's a lot of information. Basically, the change in momentum is equal to the impulse, or the way it's written is impulse equals change in momentum. So we don't need the time or the force because we're already given that. We actually found it in the last problem. So if we've got delta P equals impulse, then all we need to do, let me undo that here. delta P equals 250 Newton seconds. And really all we have to do is change the units for momentum. Delta P equals 250 kilograms meters per second. That's the proper unit for momentum. Number 3, an external force acts on an object for 0.0020 seconds. That's our time. During that time, the object's momentum increases by 400. So the change in momentum is 400 kilograms meters per second. What was the amount of the force? So we've got a time of 0.0020 seconds. We've got a change in momentum of 400 kilograms meters per second. And we want to know the force. All right, so looking at all the formulas we have, we're looking for force, and we have change in momentum, and we have time. That. So we've got F times delta T equals delta P. If I'm going to solve this for the force, I divide both sides by delta T. So that force equals delta P over delta T. Change of momentum, 400 kilograms meters per second over 0.0020 seconds. Okay. And then 400 divided by 0.0020 seconds. Let me get the calculator going here. 400 divided by 0.0020 is 200,000. And the proper unit for a force is a Newton. When you do the math, the algebra for a kilogram times a meter per second divided by a second, it ends up being a kilogram times a meter per second squared, which is what 1 Newton is equal to. Let me get this over here. All right, number 4. A 50,000 Newton force acts for 0.03 seconds. So we've got a force, we've got a time. On a 2.5 kilogram object, we've got a mass that was initially at rest. So we got a beginning velocity, and we want to know what the final velocity is. All right, so we've got force equals 50,000 newtons. We've got a time of 0.030 seconds, sorry. We've got a mass of 2.5 kilograms. We've got a beginning velocity of 0 meters per second, and a final velocity is what we're looking for. So F delta T equals M delta V, and you can always rewrite the delta V as VF minus V initial, or V naught, I think is what we've been using this year. So let's say V naught. All right, so you could rewrite this as F delta T equals M times VF minus V naught. And in reality, since this is 0, you could get rid of that because anything minus 0 is whatever that is. So F delta T equals M times the VF. And we're trying to find the VF, so divide both sides by M. So F delta T over M equals VF. So VF equals, and then the force, 50,000 newtons, times a time of 0.030 seconds, divided by 2.5 kilograms, and 50,000 times 0.03 divided by 2.5, and I've got 600. And the proper unit for velocity is meters per second. I promise you that if you took all of these units and multiplied a Newton times the second and divided it by kilograms, you would end up with meters per second. Honest. I can show you if you want some other day. And that's it for that. And I hope you did well. And please continue with the practice problems. All right, for the Impulse Unit 3 Freyer model, this is what this looks like, and you're supposed to go to the Freyer note sheet and see what we can fill in at this point. Okay. So, momentum change is caused by an impulse. An impulse is a term that describes the amount of force applied in a certain amount of time. In order for there to be a change in momentum, delta p, an object's velocity must change. All right, we'll talk more about this fourth bullet here in a minute, and the fifth bullet in a minute. But let's go back to so let's go back over here. Actually, you know what? Let's go down here. I bet if you practice really hard, you would be able to see that you could fill in this on your own right now for the most part. So the symbol for mass is m, the unit for mass is kilograms, and mass can never be negative, so it's scalar. Change in velocity. Remember, change is that Greek letter delta, so a change in velocity will be delta v, and it's still velocity, so meters per second is still the unit, and it is a vector because velocity can be negative. Change in momentum. Okay, change in is still delta, momentum is still p, so delta p for change in momentum, and the unit for momentum is still a kilogram times a meter per second, and that is a vector as well. Impulse is going to be the letter I. We'll talk about the units in a second. Change in time, delta for change in, time is t. We measure time in seconds, and time is never negative, so that is scalar. Force, capital letter F. You should remember this from middle school science. And the unit for force is Newton, named after Sir Isaac Newton. And that is a vector because a force can be positive or negative. All right, we'll come back to fill in the rest of this in a minute. We'll come back to this up here. We'll rewrite this I for impulse. I use the bars so that we don't get confused, the top and the bottom bar, so we don't confuse impulse with the number 1. All right, you want to make sure you put those bars at the top. Impulse equals force times the change in time, and change in momentum, delta p, equals mass. And the thing that caused the change in momentum was the impulse, and the impulse made the object have a change in velocity. So delta v for the change in momentum, mass times the change in velocity. Now, using your algebra brains, we're going to do some substitution here. We've got impulse equals force times change in time. So instead of writing I for impulse, we're going to substitute, and we're going to put force times change in time down here. And that is equal to, that's actually equal to the delta p too, isn't it? But we also have this formula for delta p, the change in momentum. The change in momentum is mass times change in velocity. So the mass times change in velocity is equal to the force times change in time. It's also equal to impulse. So it's kind of like a round robin here. This is equal to this, this is equal to this, this is equal to this, and these are equal to these. This is the impulse momentum theorem, and it's important to understand that the reason this happens is that there is an impact of how the momentum changes based upon the force and the amount of time involved. We'll talk more about that in a second. It should become clear in a little bit. All right, let's go back. So coming back over here, if we look at, if the time goes up, the force goes down. If the time goes down, the force goes up. And that is an inversely proportional, okay? So the examples here may help you remember it. Long impact time would be if a car hit a haystack. That makes the force less because it takes a longer time for the car to change its momentum to go from, say 50 miles an hour to 0 miles an hour. The momentum change would be the same, as if you were hitting a brick wall, but the impact has a different outcome when you hit the brick wall because you have less time that you're going from 50 miles an hour to 0 miles an hour. And that increases the force that you would feel in that kind of crash. Fill that in now. Over here, a Newton second. And since impulse is related to momentum, directly related to it, it also is a vector. It has direction. And remember, a change in anything is the final minus the beginning. Our tendency in our heads is to take the beginning minus the final. But if we're going to find the change in something and find out if we're gaining or losing something, you need to do the final minus the beginning. If you look at what we had up here, I equals delta P is what we have here. That reminds me, I forgot to give you the answers for two things over here. Whoopsie. By increasing the impact time, you can decrease the force, and impulse is equal to the change in momentum. We're looking for a force, and we've got a change in momentum, and we've got time. So in essence, what we have here is we're looking for force, we've got the time, and we've got a change in momentum. So you could rewrite this here, to be this here by just substituting the delta P for the m delta V. So that's the formula we should use.